All right, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. I hope everyone's doing amazing and feeling great. Look at these megalithic structures here. I want to do just something kind of interesting that's been on my mind for a while. I have this design for a device that I'm going to be making that hopefully will be able to tap into the 0 point, aka ether, aka subspace. I've done videos and discussed why I think that this thing exists and what's it about. Basically, it's the space in between our space and every single other spot in the universe. This is the same area that our consciousness exists in, and it's the same thing that can produce free energy. I'll show you guys some designs in a second. First, I want to just talk about this one dude who was on Julian Dory podcast and just listen to what he says, and then I'll show you something else.
But yes, exactly. When people are coming into Mesoamerica, I forget the actual explorer. I'd have to look it up in my notes. But basically, there's an account where they're saying the indigenous people, the people of the Andes that were there, had some sort of way of shaping the stone, whether it was through some sort of chemical composition or some natural ingredient that were. This is still a big mystery for people. The alternative space is a lot of different theories, but how they actually shaped the andesites. First, you got to move these things from the quarry, which is an amazing feat. To me, Sacsayhuaman is more mind-blowing than anything in Egypt. I love Egypt. There's amazing mysteries in Egypt. You got giant megalithic stones.
Right here.
But when I finally got to Sacsayhuaman and I came face to face with the stones, I was blown away. First, how they had to move them there, then how they had to get them into place, and then the shapes themselves. So there's a whole, mystery.
How did they move them there?
That's a good question. I don't know with certainty, but what I do know is in other civilizations, like with Egypt, a lot of times they would use rollers, wooden rollers. We have evidence in.
Okay, first problem with using a wooden roller, we got to start thinking logistically and tensile strength. Like, it won't work. You cannot move something that is 1,500 tons on wood rollers. The wood would literally evaporate. Like, it would be like Thanos with his glove. Just dust, right? Also, there is no wood in Aswan or in Egypt where these structures are. They had to go to Lebanon, which is 200 miles north, and then they had to travel 500 miles from their site, so 700 miles in all, to Aswan to quarry the block. And he thinks that actually the academic world, the narrative is that they put these things on wooden rollers, or they wet the sand in front of this stone and dragged it across the floor. Like, no, bullshit.
Egypt. This has been a mystery for a while, or allegedly, alternative circles will say, how did they move the stones? It's not so much how they move the stones horizontally. That isn't a mystery. There's plenty of sufficient theories that show how they did it. In addition to that, there's textual evidence. If you go at the El Bahari, the temple of Hatshepsut in Luxor, in the lower tier of her temple, right in the front in a relief, we have a full description with hieroglyphs of how her genius architect and lover, Senamut, moved the obelisk from the Aswan quarry 400 or 500 miles from Giza to the Aswan quarry. Luxor is in the middle, so maybe some 300
okay,
miles.
Bro.
How they moved it, and they did it.
Hopefully I don't get copyrighted. Do I have to keep talking or something
so
like
actually
that?
Extracting it out of this, we don't know with certainty, but there's a lot of theories that are reasonable to conjecture. And then we know the different techniques they use to move it. We can see them actually moving it on the walls, right? And this is
yeah, we see them moving one stone, and this is how they say they move every single block all around the world, right? It's not just Egypt with these massive blocks. This is a worldwide phenomenon, megalithic builders, all on top of energetic nodes that are tapping into the earth. Same type of stacking, same type of polygonal stacking. And I want to say that I think I have a theory about what these scoop marks are. I'll say it in a second.
People use lost civilizations and what's known as inheritance theory. The idea that lost.
And see, the thing is that this is exactly what's in their text. The people at those sites say that they inherited these sites. Like the King's List, you have the ancient South American tales that these were places of the gods.
Technology theory. The idea that the tools are so advanced, the tool marks are so advanced in Egypt,
Yes, they fucking are advanced. You got circular saw marks, you got striations, you got drill cores that are penetrating into granite at a higher rate than what we can do. precision within the micron level, like smaller than a human hair of tolerances. Let me see if I can give you a physical understanding. So the flatness on this plane to this plane is perpendicular with tolerances within the micron, right? The rate of flatness all the way around is completely perfect. There's no deviations, there's no wobbliness. It's a perfect radius all the way around. And in it is incorporated sacred geometry, the geometry of the universe. It's literally the substance of life. Yeah. Deja vu.
Didn't have this in the Egyptological record. How could they have done this? Therefore, it couldn't be the Egyptians. It must be a product of a lost civilization. And then the Egyptians just came along and inherited all this stuff. The Egyptians just threw their crude graffiti on.
It is crude. It's literally chicken scratch. I wonder if I can find some for you to see. Let's see. We'll just hide that old display capture there, and we'll see if I can do this correctly. I'm not the best, if you guys can tell, at doing these live events. This is one of the first times that I'm freeballing it. I hope y'all like the banter. If not, tell me, and I'll try and get better in the future. Everything is a process. You can't get better at something if you don't do it. It's what I'm trying to do right now. Like ixnaying on saying like so much, that's fucks up the flow, or making weird noises or doing weird faces or something like that. I just want to tell people this information and help the world evolve. This is a great one right here. Look at that perfect bowl. It literally will balance, and you can spin it. And there's mathematics incorporated. This is actually 3 spheres that are making this right there. I can't even speak it in layman's term because it's so advanced. It's incredible, honestly. And look at this right here. Are you kidding me? Do you see that lip? What you're seeing is the cover stone of these blocks. Absolutely incredible. And look at that flatness, like perfect. It's perfect. Look at that. Let's see if we can zoom in a bit. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff right there. I really love megalithic blocks so much. Look, that's about 6 feet. It's jutting out. Like, what? Crazy. Look at that. And we got these scoop marks. Apparently they did these with dorite pounding stones. Here we go. Look at these hieroglyphics compared to the actual polished. No, complete different levels of technology. Clear as day, you can clearly see it. And this is what you see on all of these structures. You see crude etchings. Look at that, crude etchings right there on these perfect polished granite statue structures, blocks. It's obvious. Here's another one right here. You can barely see it on the side right there. And then you got this immaculate drill core. It blows my mind that people just can't accept this, and that people believe the narrative after seeing the evidence. And my theory is that people just don't know. People aren't aware of just how incredible it all is, really. Nobody takes the time to look. This is a great one right here. Look at this. Clearly see the difference there. Look at that. These lines aren't straight. It looks all messed up and funky, and then you've got this polished, and even the scoop is polished. This is far beyond the level of technology that we have now. We can't even achieve this. And if we can, I wouldn't be able to do it. It would probably cost me millions. I love this picture because you can see all the scoop marks here. See how uniform these scoops are? All the way down, all the way around this block so that they could scoop it out. These types of scoops, look at that, boom. And the craziest part about all of this is these are their test pits. These things right here, they go down about 10 feet, okay? Why? Well, they're testing the stone. They're seeing the purity of the stone before they try and dig out a 1,500 ton granite block. You don't want to be digging down and all of a sudden you hit sand. Everyone's played Minecraft, shit happens. When you look at this, you have to ask yourself, did they really get down in here? You wouldn't be able to kneel at all. There's no way that you could pound a stone in this 3-foot diameter hole that's 10 feet in the ground. Perfect. No, the narrative is ridiculous. And the only reason why people believe it is because they're not privy to this knowledge. Otherwise, they would be complete buffoons. Buffoonery. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I got carried away looking at these pictures. Like I said, I love Oh my God, look at that. Wow, look at that. So yeah, somebody went in there and just with the block. No fucking way. Oh, so amazing. And yeah, every single site has the same thing. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's get back to the dude spouting.
Monuments, and that is not a narrative that I can subscribe to. One, the hieroglyphs are not crude graffiti. They're hieroglyphs, divine incision.
We just showed that they were crude.
They're actually intended to be magical by the priests.
Magical. Okay. Okay, I'm done with that. I think that this dude's fucking CIA or some shit like that. You know, you get this cool guy to come out, talk about DMT, how he's accessing all these incredible realms. You know, oh, I did DMT, I saw angels or aliens, and then start toting the narrative. Well, they did this with the attributed tools of the time. It's not a mystery, they're magic. No, they're not magic, and I'm about to show you guys exactly what it is. It's plasma, it's physics, literally physics. And this is where my design's gonna come in.
Effect bears resemblance to certain ancient occurrences, such as these pictograms discovered during 2012's geophysical expedition in Peru on a large carved stone called Chincana at Kenco. What appears to be a white paint on the stone actually turns out to be anomalous pictograms created using an unidentified technique. The pictograms formed by white crystal inclusions within the stone's structure.
Okay, the pictograms formed using white crystalline stuff. Whatever they said. I just finished skateboarding. I'm a little hype. That's crystal. Somehow or another, the crystal inside of the rock came to the surface of the rock and they wrote with it. So this, however they did it, it's not like they etched this little piece out and then they hammered crystals in to make the pictographs. No, they're writing with the actual crystal inside of the stone that literally bubbles out to the surface of the rock. And this follows the Hutchinson's effect. We'll finish this and then I'll show you what that is.
Migrated and self-organized on the surface. Upon closer examination, one can see that the writing is extremely ancient and gives the impression that quartz crystals were somehow moved to form a pattern or writing.
Yep.
Somewhat similar to how copper separated itself from the alloy and formed clusters in the Hutchison sample. These anomalies in metal and stone share similarities, which could indicate common features of this technology and should be investigated further. However, metal and stone are very different materials. How can it be similar then?
But also, John Hutchison found that even non-magnetic materials became magnetic.
Bob Greener, champion.
Is that this looks like the same kind of effect, but imbued onto a structure that has lasted for a very long time. And the thing that I know, it's not necessarily just magnetics. In my view, exotic vacuum objects can stay, as Shoulders said, indefinitely in materials, particularly metals.
Okay, exotic vacuum objects, EVOs, that's plasma, FYI.
And there is metals in basalt.
Basalt is a volcanic rock that is comparatively rich in iron and magnesium and quartz. Granite is a rock that is rich in quartz.
Okay, this is how the crystal would come
engineer
out.
George Hathaway discussing the analysis he conducted on one of Hutchison's anomalous metal samples.
The other thing that is significant about this is that if you examine it closely, you can see bits of copper
So amazing.
that have come out of solution, in my opinion. I mean, it was an alloy with copper.
So he's looking at the copper.
The alloying elements did not suddenly sort of come out of solution and congeal into blobs of the alloy element. It comes out as copper. In this case, there's probably molybdenum and some other alloying elements that are impossible, certainly impossible to see with the naked eye if they're well.
Okay, so basically he's talking about the impurities that are found in all metals. If you have a metal pipe, you're going to have impurities inside of that, but you won't be able to see it with the naked eye. They're just a part of it because you can't get something, 100% perfect. What they're seeing from the Ian Hutchins experiments is that those elements are actually clumping together and bubbling to the surface, right? So let's say if you have like atoms spread out of this copper element or whatever, I don't know how to describe it. Then you hit it with this EVO, which encloses it and energizes it, and it's able, and this is how these stones were able to be formed, is because you have this plasma that's able to literally change the atomic structure. And can be used for levitation. And this is exactly how they move these blocks, is with this technology. And it's actually fairly simple how they did it. It follows, the lines of like consciousness and utilizing the Earth's energy field. I don't know if I can show you guys in this video because it's pretty long. I really recommend everybody going to check this out. Versadoka. I hope I said that right. But yeah, stone softening, precision cutting, megaliths, ancient techno magic. PFM, pure fucking magic. That's what the military people call these UFO technologies when they've come out and told the world, hey, yeah, they actually have flying saucers.
But only under circumstances that I'm holding here have I ever seen blobs of the alloying element. Yes, actually. Somehow migrate out of solution and into a blob that is big enough to see. And that happens at the grain boundaries, as we found in some of the analyses of these things.
Amazing.
It is intriguing how this effect bears resemblance.
And the craziest part is that nobody was able to reproduce this experiment. We'll go a little further. This is about magnetic anomalies at Peru.
On corners or angles between flat surfaces.
These ball of fires, as they're called in the 2000
Sacred Geometry
technology paper, congregating or self-organizing on the edges. And if you actually look at when he's moving the compass around across this H-block, when he gets to the edges, or he's in the center, or he's moving into the center of the block, he is seeing magnetic anomalies. And if you can imagine, if you had the balls of fire at the corners, that's where you would create a localized magnetic anomaly. It would be, if the whole block had an overall kind of Evo magnetic
toroid field,
it would focus into the center.
Here is the initial option for verifying this theory then. Examining magnetic anomalies found on other megaliths, as they may indicate potential locations where such technology was utilized.
I would suggest to you that if
God, I hope I don't get this video taken down for letting this play.
Magnetic anomalies on those basalt rocks. That just as I found out earlier today in the rocks at Pumapunku and Tiwanaku, that they are on the edges, just as we observed on this bolt where the balls of fire.
And so what's interesting in this video, they talk about how, let's say if you were to imbue the planet with this plasma, which we know it has it on it, or this is how these things form. There's a toroidal motion that happens where everything comes in and it congeals, but there's still an energy circuit going around the magnetic field, and there's probably other fields around us. That there are energetic nodes where this plasma actually bubbles out on the surface of the sphere. And this could be exactly where these sacred sites are. And the energetic nodes on the planet is where you have these almost like hub points where the plasma accumulated on the surface of the planet. And this can be demonstrated in the lab setting.
Self-organized. Well, what it would do is it would leave a magnetic anomaly at this end, and it would leave a different magnetic anomaly at this end.
How can one utilize the effect of balls of fire attached to the edges? It can be extremely beneficial for orienting and positioning megalithic blocks.
The ball of fire got locked to the piece of material even after it cut, and wherever it moved around, it was stuck at that end. And also that it could magnetically align at this entire piece of these structures here. And if they can both act as manipulation points, you can have your AG craft pull up this one side or the other side to manipulate it into position.
I just want to say that that's if you're adopting the advanced aliens or whatever, but you could do this on the ground as well. And if you guys remember, the guy who built Coral Castle, he says that he unlocked the secrets to how the pyramids were built, and he has that little cone thing, right? Or people said that, look, he was holding an ice cream cone. The same ice cream cone, or you can call it a pine cone, that we see ancient Sumerian gods, the Anunnaki or whatever they're called.
Now, as anti-gravity craft is not even required, it could simply be a platform or even the Earth itself, or something that serves as an energy emitter, generating exotic vacuum objects within the treated object. The stone protrusions on certain megaliths resemble points of manipulation as well. Since these exotic vacuum objects have a tendency to self-organize around angled surfaces or protrusions, it's possible that one of the protrusion's functions was block orientation and placement.
Okay, so this is my theory when it comes to the scoop marks, is that because we see them in Saqqara and other places where we have these granite boxes that are just absolutely perfect and massive, like 70 tons, carved from a single block. What if these scoops are actually the impurities coming out of the actual stone and then forming on the surface, and then they come and take that out and then they polish it, right? Oh, this thing has a little bit too much, titanium, has too much flint, has too much something, and they're able to actually, at the atomic level, identify or just maybe bubble it all up, and they just want a pure quartzite phosphor granite box, or, I don't know, could be grains of sand, and they can't have that, so they hit it with this thing, it comes to the top, and they scoop it right out.
What's even more fascinating is that, in accordance with this theory, the highly complex shape of the H blocks found at Pumapunku can be explained in surprising ways.
It might be that the H blocks were specifically designed so that when you put a beam of coherent matter down onto it, to a certain degree, that it's self-organized on the block, and that gave orientation.
Yeah, and he's basically saying that they'll be able to move it. Coherent matter beam is something that I just learned about, honestly, and apparently there's a patent for it. It's a tractor beam. You have a beam that can literally move objects, or a lightsaber.
That's when you are really putting a large amount of coherent matter over the object, and you're really spinning out.
The very first experiments with the coherent matter were done at absolute zero. But the Lockheed Martin patent suggests that it could be produced at any temperature. Thus, innovative tools with cutting precision and unimaginable power become possible. Such a tool would be somewhat similar to the laser, but much more effective.
Okay, here we go. So now they're going to talk about Ian Hutchinson's and how they suspect that his technology actually incorporated ESP, which I personally agree with. This is where my design, my experiment is going to come in. I'll show you guys that. I'm going to get that ready while this is playing.
Note that when John Hutchison first reported the phenomenon he discovered, it generated a great deal of interest from both the government and private sectors. However, despite numerous attempts, almost no one was able to successfully replicate the effect. George Hathaway, a professional engineer who was hired to investigate the phenomena from a scientific standpoint, made an interesting note in his paper related to a decade of research and analysis, stating, "The inevitable conclusion from these observations is that the apparatus plays no primary role in producing the phenomena constituting the Hutchison effect. There have been several physics-based theories which have been put forward to explain the Hutchison effect. All are essentially useless. What remains is that John Hutchison himself is an active part of the system, perhaps even the main part. In the absence of any reasonable physical theory, we are left with psychokinesis as a possible, however unlikely and ill-defined at present explanation of the Hutchison effect." End of quote.
Okay, again, please, everybody, watch this video. Let it blow your mind. I've always suspected that plasma had something to do with the making of these incredible megaliths. This just further solidified that in my eyes, honestly. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys this experiment that I'll be making, and I'll actually film the progress of it just for you. Basically, what I'll have is I'm going to have rotating magnetic fields. So the first design that I have is going to be something like this. So we'll have, like a beam. And on top, there's going to be a fixed structure, a fixed plate with a magnet. And underneath it is going to be another magnet that's going to be the opposite pointing. So if these are north, this will be south, and this bottom one, or maybe even the top one, will go around. It'll spin around, right? Then on top, somehow or another, maybe coming through the bearing here, I'm going to have a Tesla coil. It's going to be on top. And so I want to see if there's any way that I can manipulate the magnetic field, and then influence it with my consciousness. Also, what I'll be having is going to be some waveguides, which are going to be copper pyramids, maybe here, and Vogel crystals, which I would like to somehow generate this energy into that. But that's one design. I have a few more designs as well, but I'll let you guys see the main one that I'll probably be building. It's my favorite one. I just got it last night while sky watching. It just came to me in my head. So it's going to be sideways. So we'll have something kind of like this. Same deal, magnet for moving, and then we're going to have another one here, magnet going the other way, right? So north, south, and yeah, these things will spin. And then here, inside, I'm going to put a big copper circle, 2 of them. And then here, my Tesla coil design is actually going to be different. It's going to be something a little bit like this. 4. And so we got the electricity going. And either a crystal here or a copper pyramid as a waveguide, or maybe somewhere down here pointing at a 43 degree angle, and then behind it there's going to be a speaker or some type of device where I can, like, you know, make resonance, right? So it'll vibrate, and if I can get it to the right frequency that this magnetic field is either going to, or something else. So the first thing that I have to do first is, you know, make a Tesla coil, which will be fun, and I'm totally excited for that. And then the next will be to get a method for having magnets be able to rotate, and then study the magnetic field and how it affects electricity. Now, maybe in the future, if I can, somehow or another, I'm going to incorporate an EVO, a plasma. I don't know if I would do something with maybe a plasma tube. See, I don't know if an electrical field or the plasma itself will be able to influence any of these, you know, if it's in a tube, let's say, like going around, or if it's in a glass ball like here, something like that. So the crystal choice that I have, which is a azurite, is a lapis lazuli crystal with copper inside of it, highly conductive. And it's the same crystal that Edgar Cayce discusses and claims was the crystal that powered Atlantis. So yes, with the information, you know, about Ian Hutchinson, you know, being able to influence his experiments, or, you know, the magnetic field, maybe even, like, you know, the electric field, with his consciousness, with his intention, that is what I'm going to try to do. And now either I'll be able to open, let's say, a gate or to call in some of these plasma orbs. Like, I would love to have one floating in front of me and be able to talk to it. Or maybe some anti-gravity effects over Unity would be awesome. And also maybe increase my ESP. You know, I already have dream premonitions and not really anything like telepathic. I don't really try to, because that stuff annoys me. But I have experienced it in the past, so maybe it'll increase that. Remote viewing would be cool, honestly. But yeah, this is basically what I wanted to share with you all today. I know this is kind of like maybe a funny, silly, ridiculous presentation, but this stuff just gets me so excited, and I really want to share it with everybody. I want like the world to know about this stuff, because the more people that know about this, the faster we can all grow up and actually start creating a better world, and a world where like we're not slaves to some antiquated system that doesn't work, you know, and we should have something completely different, but we don't. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this. If you can, please like and comment. Let me know what you think. If you guys have any ideas for my experiment, I'd love to hear. I've been thinking about getting some bismuth and melting it, then forming it and putting it on underneath the magnets, because I know there's some material that will actually affect a magnetic field and maybe steer it a certain way that you want, or null it. And I think that that would be really cool to see what kind of effects that I can get using that. But yeah, thank you all for watching to the end if you're still here. And yeah, much love. Peace out.